Something terrible happened to him in Brazil. These people make money directly from their website, so it'd be a good niche, a lucrative niche.
Blacked out. I don't remember what happened. I turned around and I punched her.
You can't just be a web developer.
Welcome to Boldly Human. In today's episode, I sit down with Chris, better known as Chris the Freelancer on YouTube. Chris went from Shopify web development to building a large audience on YouTube, sharing his digital nomad tips and adventures. One of the most well-known videos is living under $600 in Thailand with over 2.2 million views. We dive into everything from how he landed his first clients and taught himself web development to his perspectives on the US, the dangers of solo traveling, dating, and so much more. Your feedback shapes the future of this podcast. So if you enjoy this content, don't forget to DM me with your thoughts, advice, and suggestions, and subscribe to this podcast. Thank you so much for being part of this journey from the very start. Now let's get into the episode. When people see your YouTube channel, do people call you Chris, or do they say like, hey, Chris the Freelancer?
Yeah, I even have friends who call me Chris the Freelancer. It's like a little bit of fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like I have another friend who calls me Christopher Dodd because I have this thing on my WhatsApp contact list where I like to store people's full names. So yeah, it's a bit of fun that like my friends and like people that meet me, use.
When I was using my other name, because I just switched to my real name, but I had been using Travel Passcasts for like 2 years.
I think I remember that.
And it kind of became weird because it was like a nickname. So it was like people that I would meet through Instagram would be like, oh, Travel Passcast. And at first it threw me off.
Yeah.
Because I've never been, it's not even like, you have Chris in your name. It's like not really my name. So I always felt so kind of weird. I don't know if you had that.
Oh, well, the first times people introduce themselves to me after watching my stuff, that was a weird experience. But now I'm like used to it. And I just try and switch the subject back onto them. Because they already know enough about me anyway, and I have no idea about them. So I just try to switch the conversation back to them and get to know them a little bit more.
Yeah, that is actually really smart. I never thought about that because it's like people are seeing so much of you in your life.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, I don't know this person. And
then
you kind of have to like navigate that.
And then if like somebody I watched on YouTube, if I met them, I don't know what I would say to them either because like their life is already online. Yeah. So it's like, what have I got to...
You like know so much about them. Yeah. You're like, hey, remember that 2 years ago when you posted?
And then you look a bit like a stalker. So yeah.
I totally feel that. So what inspired you to start your YouTube and do the freelancing?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to I did this study abroad experience in the US. Went to this university in LA. University wasn't great, but I had experiences in LA that I couldn't have had back home in Brisbane, Australia, where I'm originally from. And I came back from that study abroad, and honestly, like it was a study abroad, but I didn't learn anything. I didn't really study. It was a terrible university. I even got out of one assignment because there was one class where the students complained, oh, this is too hard, we need longer. So the teacher like pushed back the due date till after I left the country. And I'm like, look, I'm leaving the country. And he's just like, oh, what's your grade right now? And I'm like, oh, like C or something. He's just like, yeah, don't worry with the assignment. Like this is unheard of in my country, like to have, because I didn't realize with America, you guys have like a lot of disparity in things. Like the worst university is so different to the best university.
Right.
And when I was in LA, I visited UCLA and what's the other one? USC. And I was just like, this is night and day difference. Like you go to the cafeteria at UCLA, which somebody snuck me into, and like there was people in chef hats with little counters, and you could go to each counter and get chef prepared meals. And I was like, holy moly. Like,
yeah, some of it's pretty extreme.
My college had like, their cafeteria was closed. So you went into this like shitty room and they had foam containers and refried beans. It was like prison food. And I was like, I really
Welcome.
messed up, like with the
Welcome to the
university choice.
US.
Yeah, I really messed up. But look, honestly, the university experience was pretty terrible. Like, did
Okay.
not meet my expectations at all. But the second half of the semester, I moved off campus and lived with some girls in Hollywood, like the area of LA, not the movie scene or anything, but like the suburb or area. And yeah, I just, like I said, I went to Vegas a few times. I just had experiences that I wouldn't have, that you need to travel for, you need to be outside of Australia for. And I just got hooked on that sort of the adventure, the sort of having a different experience. And then so when I came back to Australia, yeah, like I said, I didn't really do like, I wasn't really studious or anything. It was just the experience of being over there. So I was like, okay, well, need to kind of work on my career now. And I had another like year left of university. And so I was like, oh, I'll just be responsible now. But I was like, oh, I really want to live abroad. But all the options at the time seemed to be like, volunteering on a farm.
Right.
One thing that's popular in Australia is to like work on the ski fields of Whistler, Canada, stuff like that. Like just like very
Like work there.
just like very
In
worker
person.
yeah, so you can live long term there, but you do like very basic jobs, which it wasn't really
Right.
building a career. And then I was like, oh, like I can't really do that. I just spent 6 months, just fuffing around in the US. So yeah, it wasn't until I like read this article about a guy called Peter Levels, and in this article had the words digital nomad, and that was the first time I'd ever heard this term. And I like just researched into it, and I was like, this is it. I can work online and I can travel. And it was like an instant switch that I was going to do this, because I had, it solved the problem that I had, which was I want to live abroad, I want to travel, but I don't want to just like kick the can of my career down the road,
Right.
And then yeah, I decided to study web development by myself, like self-study, and got like work within like a year. And then within like, yeah, it was like a year after I'd sort of made the decision to be a digital nomad, my girlfriend and I at the time just packed up everything and went nomading.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because you started at a time where it wasn't like as trendy, like
Yeah. for
right
sure.
now everyone's like, oh, the digital nomad lifestyle, and it's like this glamorous, thing that everybody.
Well, it was before Instagram stories that I
Okay.
started nomading,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of puts it in perspective. Look how used to Instagram stories we are these days. So
Right.
yeah, it was even before that feature came out on Instagram.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I also like that you said that you wanted to build your career, because a lot of people feel like it's either or. It's like I can go travel or I can build my career, but you can do both. And it's hard to manage both, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think it was maybe one of the things that we would go into today, but like the balance is one of the trickier things. Because if you
Right.
just stay in the one place and focus on your career, you're entirely focused on your career. Whereas if you're traveling too much, you might be too focused on travel. So you got to kind of balance the two.
Yeah. And like, so when you started, did anyone make you feel crazy for wanting to do this?
Um, I knew I wasn't crazy because I did the research and I could see
Right.
people actually doing it. But yeah, like you said, pre-pandemic in 2016, people didn't really know about this digital. Well, I only just found out about it, so it wasn't definitely not a mainstream idea. And I guess the person who was most skeptical of it was my dad.
Okay.
My dad thought I was absolutely nuts. Firstly, for thinking that I could be a web developer without any formal study.
Okay.
And then secondly, to work remotely in northern Thailand.
Okay.
So yeah, I just was like, you don't get it. And my dad is an old school guy. He is pretty old. And business he thinks of business the way it was done in
Right.
the 80s or whatever. So yeah, he's come around totally in the 8 years since, because he's just seen me do it. Like, it's just, you have to put aside your doubts when you can literally see it in front of you,
Right.
and then see other people doing it as well.
When there's proof that you
Yeah.
actually can do it. And I also think that so much has moved online. Like, there are so many opportunities now online that just weren't even considered to be possible back then.
Yeah, and then all of these digital careers have matured as well. Like I was having dinner with my another YouTuber and friend, Yorsa the Nomad, and he was talking to me about how he's making a full-time living from YouTube, and he's like, it's actually a really good business. And it's funny because I didn't see it like that when I was like full-time in my channel back in like 2017, because like there wasn't a lot of people making money from it, and I think sponsorships were less because it just wasn't mature enough of a field. Whereas now everything's moving to content, everything's moving online. It's even in the field of e-commerce, they're just calling it commerce now because it's like it's online and brick and mortar are just part of the landscape now. It's just it's a huge part. I mean, look at what's happening today. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. I was at Paddle earlier and they had it on the screen, and one of the guy who's one of the teachers there, I said, this guy right here is a comedian. It's his first boxing match, and he's just like, oh, why is he fighting on a boxing thing? And I'm like, social media, bro. Like, it's changing everything, including like boxing. Boxing's now about how many followers you have on Instagram as much as how good of you are as a boxer.
That's wild.
So like social media, online, just everything online is just changing everything.
It really is. Did you always make money from web developing, or did you have other ways as well?
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't prepare for well enough was, so I was like, I'm just going to build these skills in web development, and I focused a lot on the skills, and I was able to network and get started in my career in Australia because I like did physical networking. Like I went to co-working spaces, tech meetups, stuff like that, which was surprisingly easy to find work because not a lot of university graduates like me were going to these things. But then when I started traveling, I was outside of that world. And so how do you connect with clients in like Australia or the US when you're in Thailand? And so I did not anticipate how much I would have to learn how to market myself and position, like the actual finding clients. And so because of that, I started to have doubts about web development, and this is not a time, this is a bit of a confusing time in my life. I started to not commit to the skill that I had already started,
right,
because I was struggling to get a bit of work. So I was starting to try everything. And I think it is also, to be fair, a trap that a lot of people can fall into, because especially now with social media, you see, oh, this person's making $1 million with dropshipping, this person's making this much with FBA. They call it the shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I fell for that a little bit because, web development I wasn't really good at finding clients in the beginning. And at a certain point, I just realized you got to stick with something, and you got to oh, this person makes this much over here. Okay, that's great. I'm doing my thing. Or at least be a bit more discerning of the opportunities that come your way. Whether you align well with this opportunity, rather than, oh, so this person made so much money selling, I don't know, whatever people sell on e-commerce websites, toothpaste. Oh shit, I should do that as well.
Right.
But does that really align with you? Are you passionate about toothpaste, or do you have some sort of pre-existing skills with e-commerce or whatever? For me, I feel like I'm pretty good with coding. Mm-hmm. So I really should have just stuck with it. And then when I just decided to do that and then not worry so much about other things that weren't really aligned with me, then the career started to build,
Yeah, I've had that problem a lot. I've looked at all the shiny objects and I'm like, wow, they're doing this and they're doing that. How do I do this? And it's so hard to stay focused when you're is this right for me? Is this what I want to do? How did you know to stop looking around and just focus in?
I guess enough of it's kind of like in high. This is a bit of a random one, but in high school, I tried every sport in high school and never got good at any of them. So it's after that, I left high school thinking, damn, I should have just stayed with the one sport. And then, you do that sport for 5 years, you're going to be probably in the first team, in the number one team at school when you're in your senior year. So I guess I kind of just realized this isn't working, like grabbing at shiny objects. So I just kind of stuck with the main thing and had faith at that. Because that's what you got to do too, is stick at something and have faith with it. Because I have a friend who was trying all sorts of different businesses, and then now he has committed to school.com, being like an expert on school.com. I don't know if you've
I don't know what that is.
Oh, you never heard? Oh, it's a super popular community platform.
Okay.
And he just committed himself to it, and he didn't make money for 3 months or something. And he was on school.com 8 hours a day or something. And then now he's one of the top guys with School, and he got flown out by the founders to Vegas, and now he makes really good money from it. So yeah, he had to have faith during those 3 months that this investment of his time was going to pay off.
And what is that platform?
So school.com is this I guess what makes it different to the other platforms is they're trying to build such a big brand that it's almost like a social media. So how you're on Instagram and you already have an Instagram account, you can just follow new people. School is you have one School account, but you can subscribe to different people's communities. And,
that's interesting.
And so you go on this, so the benefit of that is if I'm already on School and then you launch a School community, I don't have to put my credit card details in or create a new account. I just click subscribe, and it's already going to pull the money monthly from my account. And then if I'm part of multiple communities, I can switch easily between them. I don't think it's huge. It's not a game-changing platform in terms of the features of it. It's just there's a classroom for courses and there's a community section. But how they've marketed it to be School has a certain level of trust. So when you join my School community, you're behind that big brand, rather than be join my community with not School behind it. Does that make sense? Okay.
So it's the marketing is the main pillar of it that kind of allows people to find you more than other platforms?
I don't think there's much of a discovery platform on it. You still need to be a YouTuber or another content sort of creator.
I didn't know if maybe their popularity made people think oh, I can make more money hosting on that platform versus...
There's probably some consumer psychology that makes that true, Okay. It doesn't necessarily work on me. I mean, I just joined this guy's community. He didn't even have... It was on Circle, which is another platform that not many people use, and I didn't even pay through the platform. He just sent me a Stripe link, and I actually want to cancel, so I'm gonna have to email him and say, can you take my credit card details off your Stripe? So it's more archaic, whereas School just makes that super easy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that stuff would be really hard to get trust building if you were to just probably send out.
Yeah, I think it comes down to trust. People trust School, so they're gonna be more willing to click the buy button on your website if it's on School, on your community if it's on School, probably.
Okay, and then when did you start getting more clients, or when did you start kind of really taking off?
Okay, so for me, the thing that I really needed to do or for things for me to click personally was to find sort of my niche within web development. So there's some for people that don't understand web development, they might not understand that it's a very broad field, right? There's not only is there back end and front end, but there's different frameworks, there's different platforms. It's I'm not a PHP developer, for instance, which is still web development. I'm good at these languages, not these languages. Do you know what I mean? So what I did was I found my specialization, which is in Shopify, and I since then it's changed everything, because it's there's multiple reasons why it's a good niche, but the principle is you can't just be a web developer, because there's just multiple different platforms. I mean, you probably could, but it's better to be I'm an expert in this platform or I
Right.
do this like specific thing within web development. And especially when you're dealing with clients that don't know anything about web development, like they're going to be using a platform, they're going to be using something existing that you're going to have to understand, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like for me, if somebody is on Shopify, like a Shopify seller, and they're like, I need to do something on my website, maybe they have no idea about web development at all. If I say I'm a Shopify web developer, that's more aligned with, oh, I'm on Shopify, Chris is probably the right guy to speak to, rather than if I just am a web developer, they don't even know what that is, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's also hard to find which avenue to take, like which type of web developing and where to even start, because there's so much of like a startup cost and time to know where you even want to go. So how did you find that for you?
I guess I had a bunch of friends. So yeah, for me, my thinking was always, I want to be able to freelance, and I want to be able to freelance from anywhere in the world. So that was the main thing. So if you're going to be working for banks as a web developer and you're working on some really old school code bases, who knows if they're going to let you work remotely, and that you probably can't freelance with that, you know?
Right.
Not working, I mean, you could work remotely, but with like banks or like government institutions, the security risk of you working from Bali or Thailand might be too much for them. And so they might have a rule. I've heard a bunch of stories, I think at least in the US, where you're only allowed to work your remote job in the US.
Yeah.
You can't like leave the country, right? So for me, it was just like, the whole reason I got into this career actually was because I wanted to be a digital nomad and have that flexibility. So I had to look at areas within web development where I could freelance, and it didn't matter where I was. So I looked to, and stuff that's not going to be too big of a learning curve for me either. So initially I did WordPress, which I don't know what the statistics are now, but powers a lot of the internet. Like, I don't know if you've heard of WordPress.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like just this open source CMS that a lot of websites run on. And I just chose it because it was popular, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You have to choose something that is popular enough to get the work. Do you know what I mean? And then I did WordPress, but I never was like really expert in it. It's like, especially because it's open source, there's a lot to it.
Hard for, at least to me, when I was first starting all the travel stuff. I was trying to do a travel blog on WordPress. And just to me, because I've never touched anything even close to that before, when I got onto that, I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
There's so many customizations when I just wanted like a website to be.
Yeah, so there's the experience from your perspective, the person who's like, it's your website, and then there's like the developer experience. And so like even from the developer experience, I felt like it was a poor experience because it is open source. It means someone can literally touch every bit of the code and mess it up,
Right.
essentially. And it's a back end plus front end thing. So like it's just a monolith to deal with, right? And so yeah, I was doing mainly WordPress for like a few years, and then I had a few friends on Shopify, and I was like, I really want to like learn this platform. This is like a growing platform. It's e-commerce. These people make money directly from their website. So I think that this would be a good niche, a lucrative niche. But there was no like resources online to learn it back then. Now there's me, and then there's a bunch of other people, but back then there wasn't anything. And so what I did was I had this, I decided to do a year break from nomading. This was 2019.
Okay.
And then I was just like looking at opportunities. I was like, I've decided to like, give living at home another try. Let me like look at what opportunities are out there. And I found a job for being a web developer at a Shopify plus partner agency. And I was just like, sounds like a great opportunity to learn on the job. And so yeah, I applied for it, got it, and yeah, it felt like a step back in the way because like I'm back to working full time in a fixed location, but it's the best thing I could have done because the whole time I still had my goal to go back out there, but like with this new niche of Shopify. So I just like spent the whole time learning as much as I could with that in mind, and then also creating a bunch of content on Shopify at the same time. And so like I was one of the first people to like put out a lot of Shopify development content on YouTube. And then after about 10 months, I had the experience of working on all these stores. I had the fact that I'd worked for a Shopify Plus partner agency. I had, studied as much as I could and put together like resources of my own to teach other people. And then I just was like, okay, now's the time. And then I quit. And then like, it was like Christmas time. So I like took a week off. And then the next week I like looked for clients on LinkedIn and found one. And then that was it. I was off traveling again. But now I had my new niche of Shopify. And it served me well ever since to work, to specialize in that particular platform.
Okay, so you found your first client then on LinkedIn.
Well, for Shopify specifically, after
Okay.
that job. So I was a jack of all trades before that. And this is kind of what I was saying. Like I was still making money, but like I wasn't an expert in anything.
Okay,
It's kind of like the cardiologist makes more than the GP,
right,
or the surgeon or whatever specialization.
General.
You make more than just being a generalist usually. So I wasn't really building a solid expertise in a certain area.
Okay.
And so now I've just been doing Shopify since 2019. I'm like, I'm the guy to come to for Shopify stuff. But if you came to me for something WordPress, I'd just say no. So that's the downside is, but the thing is, there's like, depending on who you ask, there's 4 to 5 million different stores, Shopify stores out there. So there's plenty to go around for Shopify work. So you don't need to work on other platforms.
Right. That is like one of the best ways I think to do it, to kind of have that experience before and then go into freelancing and not just immediately go into freelancing, because at least in my experience, when I had a remote social media job actually. Before, so like in the US, so they knew that I already had a social media remote thing. It was like no surprise, and it was medical marketing.
Okay.
Of all things. So they kind of had this idea that, all right, I know how to work remotely and manage all of that. How do you also manage the work-life balance between the two?
I was asked a similar question by my friend Joachim on his channel, and my answer to that was, it really, like, because you are your own, well, as a freelancer, you kind of like can control your own schedule. And so like I could switch it up tomorrow and do something completely different. So I'm quite agile at changing my schedule or my routine. And then obviously, so one of the things I like actually about web development is it's quite asynchronous. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that term, but like the work doesn't have to be done when your client is online, basically, most of the time. So the only time that I really need to be doing the work while my client's online is if I'm texting them, like there's communication that needs to happen, like the texting on Slack or emails or like meetings, So with my work, I do like one meeting a week I have, with one of my clients. And then everything else is just like Slack and email. And so I personally like to structure my days like a normal 9 to 5. Like I get up early, I go to work at around 8:39, and then go to the gym in the afternoon, and then finish it then. But there's been times like I was working with this client in New Zealand last year when I was in Brazil, and Brazil has a completely different time zone to New Zealand. Like you almost can't get more opposite. So I made a compromise and did more night work then. But yeah, it really can change. Like I could decide next week I'm gonna work midday to 10 p.m.
Right.
Like so it's at the end of the day it just comes down to like what I do is I make a plan for tomorrow the day before, so I know like I don't just wake up and I'm like, well, what time am I starting work today? So it's either routine driving me or like a plan that I've made the night before.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's so important to have routine, because at least for me, if I don't have a routine, it's like where where does my time actually go during the day? Or if I don't like schedule my day out, then all my time could go to things that might not be as important.
Yeah.
So definitely like prioritizing is like kind of what I do, and then work around that.
Yeah.
But
It makes me think about this conversation I had, like, I think it was in 2020, and we debuted at a digital nomad meetup this film that this lady had made about digital nomads. And then we're all talking about, oh, everyone's going to be a digital nomad. It's like everyone's going to be able to work. This was just before the pandemic. So like, we're like, everyone's going to be a digital nomad one day. And then one guy said to me, nah, because a lot of people enjoy being told what to do. And it's not that they like authority. It's the fact that being like a freelancer or your own boss, you kind of have to project manage yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So like you need to, put in a schedule, a routine. You need to organize your task. What are you going to do first? What are you going to do last?
Decision fatigue is
a
lot of it.
So I think a lot of people like the fact of going to a job and like in what I do, if I worked for an agency, like even like I just wake up and go to work and they tell me what to work on that day,
Right.
even. So with a lot of sort of these digital nomad jobs, you kind of have to be your own project manager.
So in one of your YouTube videos, you're in Brazil and you're like discovering whether it's the new Bali, right?
Oh yeah, my Peeper video.
Yeah, I loved that. And you go to one of these spots and it's like outside.
Yeah. And
it's like hot, there's bugs, there's probably glare on your computer, like all those things. And there's some people who can be like, oh, that's glamorous. And then there's other people where you're like, I'm going to lose my shit having to stay there. But I will say that being able and having the opportunity to switch it up, like just go somewhere new, I think can make you actually way more productive as well.
Yeah, I mean, like it depends on what you're working for. Like for me, I'm a big fan of like having a certain lifestyle. And so I guess I'm more of a work to live kind of guy than a live to work. If you're a live to work kind of person, I mean, just like stay in whatever city you are and have the best office possible, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I'd say I'm more of a work to live kind of person. So if I'm in somewhere like I don't want to live and I'm working a lot, I'm just like, what am I working for? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Unless you're delayed gratification, you're putting in because that's kind of similar to kind of what I'm doing right now. Like as amazing as it sounds to like live in Bali for 10 months, like it's like can't wait to travel and I'm over it. Like the novelty wears off after a while. And I've just been working every day because I've been working on this course that I've been sort of like sitting on for a while, and I had to get it done. So just been working at it like every day, and the thing that's motivating me now is the thought of like my travels next year.
Yeah, and starting up your YouTube again, right?
Yeah.
I want to see that again. I'm excited for you and excited for me because I get to watch it.
Oh, thank you.
But the most recent video that you posted was probably one of my favorites because we were kind of talking about before the filmmaking aspect of it. And I look at that and I just go, wow, that must have taken so long to do, and like so long because there's so much storytelling, there's so much filmmaking, like just all of the shots that you have to do.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you go through your story, and like being authentic and vulnerable is just like something that not everybody does online, because some people want to portray that they have the best life and that there's nothing that could possibly go wrong for them, just like the idealistic.
Yeah.
And I really like that you take, your viewer through the challenge and all of that. So I know it's kind of, I want people to like watch it for themselves, but working through like a breakup while traveling is probably one of the hardest things to do, especially because I don't think what people understand is when you are traveling with somebody, it is like you're already living with them.
Yeah.
You get to know them so much faster.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's dating on a whole nother level. It's like more extreme. So in what ways were you able to like work through that?
I mean, in this particular, like referencing the last video, I wasn't actually traveling. I moved to her city and then ended up heartbroken in her city. And it was a unique experience for me because I never had that kind of relationship before. It was just very dramatic. The whole thing was very dramatic on her side. I was trying to be chill with it. But I can definitely understand what you're saying in terms of my first relationship, which was the girl that I was traveling with for the first 2.5 years of my digital nomad journey. So yeah, those videos are like, she's in a lot of those videos, but they're like kind of old now. So they're like pushed back further in the channel. But yeah, a lot of people that followed the channel back in the day would remember Denise. And one of the things that is an issue is you spend so much time together, which in future relationships, I'm going to try and manage space because I do think it's not about the person pisses you off or anything like that. It's like you literally it just becomes too normal, too familiar. Like you can lose the spice. That's like, there's a lot of nuance to it, but like there's that aspect as well. And like one of the things, like even if you live with someone in a traditional sense in the one city and, you know, it's not digital nomad life, you know, you usually go to separate workplaces and then you come home. And so like, how was your day or whatever.
Right.
But like for me, like we would sometimes work from home and it would literally be like me here and then her here, right? All day. Oh, let's go to lunch together. Let's go to dinner together. And actually I'm pretty like, I don't typically need a lot of space in a relationship, but I feel like I would try and have more space in future just because I feel like it's healthier and it can keep, you know, they say, what's the saying? Like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I don't think you need to spend 6 months away from each other, but just to introduce a healthy amount of space. And so like, that's a problem with like digital nomad relationships, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you can easily be like waking up to going to sleep and it's never a question of, oh, do you want to do something by yourself? You know, because you can technically do everything together and there is like that easiness and comfort that comes with that.
Yeah.
I think also it's interesting dating while traveling because there's so many different cultures and so many different ways that people go about relationships.
Yeah. Which
I never really thought about until I left the US because I think for me, dating was always kind of like a straight normal thing.
Yeah.
But now it goes into like more of different styles of relationships. At least I noticed that I think a lot of people who travel kind of experiment with like different styles or at least are more open to talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's like just a travel thing, just experiencing different cultures, or it's just that people are more open.
Yeah, because if you look at how dating typically works, it's all just society constructed, right?
Right.
You can craft a relationship however you want, you know, like, and obviously there's different models, like in terms of sexual exclusivity, like you could have an open relationship, you could be having multiple girlfriends or boyfriends in a polyamorous sort of situation. Society tells us that we should be monogamous and this is how it should go. But then you put yourself in the digital nomad world and you're traveling, like you said, into different cultures. There's that aspect. But then you're also traveling through these different cultures. Or if you're in Bali, you're in the expat bubble, which is it's a mix of every culture. And so like, it's like, what is a relationship in this society that we live in? Like, you know, back home in the US or Australia, like there's a definition of what a relationship is supposed to be. But here it gets a bit fuzzy.
It does. Have you ever heard of like some crazy travel flings or had any yourself?
Nothing crazy, like, yeah, I mean, I'd say me personally, I'm like quite open-minded. So, like, but that being said, like, it's been pretty normal
Yeah.
for me. Like, yeah, I was thinking about this, and yeah, hasn't nothing. I don't have any like crazy stories. I guess I'm like pretty risk adverse person, and that
Mm-hmm.
applies to dating as well.
Right.
So I don't take a huge amount of risk with that, although I probably should take more risks. But yeah, I don't have
Well, I feel
anything.
like you've taken a lot of risks because, just being able to start the digital nomad journey
Mm,
and being able to go into the web developing and kind of take the risk of that whole startup and going for it.
yeah.
That's a lot of people struggle to even get there.
Yeah, who was I talking about that? I remember having this conversation with someone else, but that might sound risky, but like I was so done with my life in Australia that it's not it didn't sound like a risk at all.
Right.
Like what I'm doing now in terms of spending like not full time, but spending a year working on a course that I don't know if it's going to sell, that to me is like risk, right? Because
Right.
I could have been using that time in another way,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no way that I would just want to like, and this is not throwing shade at my sister, but there's no way I would want to live like my sister, who's just the corporate ladder girl and like every completely linear lifestyle, like normal lifestyle in Australia, which, she wouldn't be surprised me saying this, like
Right.
that my whole family knows that I'm the weird one and that like, wants to travel and make videos and, have different experiences and be bit more adventurous. To live like a normal person, it's just like it's not even a risk to me because I just don't want to do it that badly.
Right.
Like yeah.
I do think that research and just kind of having less option in your mind,
Mm,
like not that you don't have that option available, but that it's so undesirable that it's not seen as one,
mm.
kind of allows you to be like, well, I guess this is it.
It's like the saying, good is the enemy of great. So if you're like, and I've fallen into this trap too, like, oh, things are good right now. Why would I take a big risk on
Right.
making things great, right?
Right.
But if like, say for instance, your life totally sucks and you're like, you've got really nothing to lose with the risk because you hate your life and you're like, the life sucks anyway. So if you're in like, and this is what they say is good about rock bottom because you've got
Yeah.
nothing to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you just like if you're already broke and you're like working on a business that could be $1 million thing, unless like your alternative is to get a good job and like you have access to having a good job and that's going to be a good life for you, unless you fall into the good trap,
Right.
then like you take the risk to achieve greatness because the alternative is just shit.
Yeah.
You know what I
It,
mean?
and it's funny because so many people tell me their stories where it was like more extreme in the sense that they were not happy. Like they were just
Mm.
really not happy and they're like, I have to leave.
Yeah.
Like that's been kind of a consistent thing that I've heard from
Mm.
a lot of people. But I also think that people are chasing the great aspect because it's become a lot more stable in a lot of people's minds
Mm.
because it's a path that a lot of people now take to become a digital nomad.
Yeah, I guess it's all depending on your own perspective. The good versus great for me personally right now is like stepping out of like trying to build a big business, right?
Right.
Whereas like being just a freelancer and traveling the world is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not if like I said, I didn't just staying in Australia, living back there, just living a normal life. That's like down here.
Mm-hmm.
Like traveling the world as a digital nomad is like up here, and then like having a super successful like business and being a real big success is like up here, right? So like, but what's happened with me personally is like the standard has risen over time, and I've just gotten more tired of this level right
Yeah.
here, where it's like I'm willing to take more of a risk to get to this level because I'm like getting a bit pissed off that I'm not at that level, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree with that. I think for me, I started at rock bottom.
Yeah.
I started where I was just, it's kind of like the reason why I think I started this podcast is because I was just at a point where I was so unhappy when it was everything. It was, my environment, it was the people around me, it was what I was doing. It was like all stuff that I was like, this is not for me. And I took like a solo trip by accident.
Oh, how do you do it? How do you do that by accident? You got on the wrong plane?
I was doing a trip with my friends, and I was working 2 to 3 jobs at the time.
Oh, wow.
So like I just didn't ever have a day off. I would wake up, go to work, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, go to sleep. And if I had any time extra, I was doing side jobs. Like there was just no real break. And so when my friends wanted to do a trip to Hawaii, I was like, oh, absolutely. Like, I'll get a week off from all my jobs. And it somehow worked out that I had 3 more days off than they did, because it's just, I was working as like a server and then part-time like social media manager. And I was like, okay, well, I have 3 more days off. I technically have a plane ride back, but when am I ever going to get the chance to go view another island in Hawaii?
Yeah.
So I was like, actually, screw this. So I just like canceled my flight back home. And I literally thought to myself, I don't care if it's the most miserable 3 days of my life. Like, at least I get to see something new.
Yeah.
And that was just the mindset. So like I was just went, and it was the best 3 days of my entire life.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What happened?
It changed my view on the world because there were so many other people solo traveling. And at the time, I was someone who was so in the, I'll just get like a 9 to 5 and I'll just like do that route. And oh my God, the people that I met were like doing these crazy things with their life. They're like, I worked, like we were saying, they did the ski lift thing. And to me, I was like, what? And then
yeah, because in America, it's not as common to hear about these things from the outside world, people traveling and stuff. I think it's probably getting different now.
It's starting to.
Changing now, but yeah. Like, what's the statistic? Like a third of people don't have passports or something?
Yeah, I think it's been, the statistic was like 1/3 or something. People, but I remember so vividly being so shocked that this was like a life that people could live.
Yeah, wow. And
then I did everything in my power to save up and just quit. But my dad was like, you want to what?
Was he a bit like my dad, a bit old school and like, how are you going to make this work? Or?
He was more in the sense of, I'm supportive with everything you do, but what do you want to do? Like I just felt so like my heart ached because he's such like a kind soul, but like when your dad's nervous and he's like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. Like my family hasn't really heard much about like digital nomad life. My aunt did travel for a good amount of time and she always talks about it, but they were like so caught off guard, I guess. My grandma was like, so do you want to bring a man with you? And I was like no, like I think I got
protection or
I was like, I think I can do this. And I went back, and then she told all of her friends, and she was like, and she traveled to all these places by herself. So they were really proud. But I think at the beginning, it was a little bit of a fear factor element to it.
And it's even more impressive when a woman does it,
There's like a more risk for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I think just like objectively speaking, it's more risky. Like you're more at target for danger, being a female. So I always try to remember that when people ask me about stuff, in especially safety, because like I have hardly had any experiences where I felt unsafe, but that doesn't mean I necessarily recommend it to to a woman, right? Because I don't know what the experience of being a woman in certain places are.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I've had really good experiences for I did like, I think it was like a year and a half fully by myself.
Yeah.
And I went to Central America. I did Brazil with a group.
Okay.
So I can't really speak on that. But traveling throughout Europe for 6 months, like, I mean, it's safer.
Yeah, well, there's this whole thing in the US where they see the world, outside world as so scary.
Right.
But like if they look at it objectively, like I met my friend. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble for this. My friend is dating a girl from Chicago.
Okay.
And she was saying to me how like she felt scared to be in Bali, and I was just like, oh my God, like I've never been to Chicago, but I've heard that like half the city is like you can get
Chicago,
shot. You know, like nobody's gonna mess with you here.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's like the element of knowing, because it's like there's a part of you that even though it might be more dangerous, you're like, at least I know where to go and not go. But also because of that, you think that you might need to know that when you go to another place where you can go and you can't go, whether I think it's subconscious or conscious.
Yeah, I think when it comes to safety, for me, it comes down to, number one, do you feel unsafe? And then number two, you can just ask a local. Like, so one time probably the sketchiest place I stayed in Brazil, I was going to go on a walk at midnight to like go to this bar.
Oh God.
Because my bus got in really late, and I was like, oh, it's actually, there's actually this event at this bar on tonight. Okay. And I was like gonna walk it, and I was like, I don't necessarily, like, it's quiet, these roads, this area feels a bit sketchy. And the other thing is, like, the door had like 3 locks, like the front door of the accommodation where I was staying. So I like went to the dude and I was just like, hey, like, do you think it's safe to walk to this bar? And he's just like, no. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll book an Uber. And then as I get out of the front door to get in this Uber, there's this like this creepy beggar that comes at me as I'm getting out of the door, and then I just go from one door into the other door into the Uber and get driven there. And I was just thinking to myself, good thing I didn't walk, but I think I would have realized it was a bad idea pretty quickly, and then gone back and been like, okay, let me book an Uber.
Right.
So like you can kind of tell when you're in a sketchy area.
Yeah. And I always say, like, my biggest advice for girls is to ask like a woman local.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes when I ask a man, and it's like a thing about being at night, they'll kind of be like, yeah, just, walk down that street. And then one time I like wanted to see the difference. So I asked a woman, and she's like, okay, you can go down the street, but I wouldn't go down the street because there's not much lighting there. And it's kind of like there's a lot more strategy in how you get places.
Yeah.
Because if there's certain areas where, it's really dark, even if it's a street that
or a
not
place
many
that you
people
can't
walk.
run, like there's no exit,
Right.
if you do get somebody coming up to you.
Right, yeah. So it's like the dark element, how many people are around, because like you want to go to more populated areas, especially if you're walking at night, because then you have more people. But then you don't want it too crowded, because if you go to... So it's like this whole kind of thing that you can go too far down, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's more just about the sense of being aware. It isn't about,
100%.
I'm paranoid. It's more about, okay, well, like, maybe I want to go to somewhere that's more lit up at night.
Yeah.
Just like taking the more safe route for stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person maybe, because somebody asked me, like, I don't know if I said I was on edge in Brazil, but like they asked me, oh, like, what, doesn't that bother you being on edge all the time? And I'm like, being aware of my surroundings and the possibility that guy over there could rob me, it never really bothered me. I was like, maybe it's a little bit exciting, if anything. But the caveat to that is I've never had anything bad happen to me. So if I did, then I would carry that trauma, and then probably I would be scared.
Right.
Because I haven't experienced something bad happening to me. you know, this could be something that I couldn't anticipate that could happen to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like in that same area I mentioned before, I walked through during the day and it still felt sketchy, and I was like, okay, well, like just keep an eye on this guy. He could like pull something on me. And so like you said, like if you go around, like the people that get robbed in Brazil, you know, this is speaking from only 5 months of experience. So like, you know, other people will tell you other things. But if you go around Brazil, like on Copacabana Beach, looking like a tourist and go, oh, look at this, oh, wow, and then have your phone hanging out like this, then like that's going to stand out. And these guys are going to be like, look at this easy target, run up and snatch your phone. Whereas like I took my phone out and filmed stuff in Brazil, but I was like, you know, like looking who could steal it.
Yeah.
Just
And
literally
both hands
being
on it. Yeah.
yeah, literally being aware of like who's around you and that your stuff could be stolen is like you're already halfway there to being safe.
Yeah. Have you ever had? So you haven't actually had anything stolen then, or nothing?
No, but this is the thing. Like I said, I'm risk adverse. So before I went to Brazil, I spent half a day working on a security plan.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do the same thing I'm gonna go back to Brazil and do Carnival, which represents new risks, right? So I'm gonna do the same thing. Maybe order some. I bought some stuff that I never ended up using.
Okay.
Like I bought these special underwear where they had an extra pocket to put your stuff.
I've seen stuff like that, yeah.
But it wasn't very practical because, you know, your phone's a block, right? And this was like right in your crotch. So it's like having a phone like here, right? And then, like, I mean, depends on what pants you wear over it. But like, it was like you literally had a block like here, right? And also,
people were like, huh.
And also the radio
shaped
waves
differently.
like make you less fertile.
What?
Yeah, do you know that?
Oh, yeah, wait, no, I have heard of that before.
Yeah. So you don't want to put like next to like, you know, your future children the phone anyway. So it's just a bad I didn't end up using that feature. And what I opted for more was like I have a jacket that has an inside pocket and a zip. So you just got to think, how could someone rob me right now? And if you can't think of a way that they could rob you right now, you're probably safe.
Yeah, because it's not worth being paranoid about. It's like you're there to travel, you're there to see the place, you're there to, you know, experience things. And it's like you're doing it, that's like the best way. You know, you do some research before, you figure out your plan, and then you're like, okay, well, I've done what I can do.
I've got my plan.
And I gotta let it go. But that is just life, you know?
I'll tell you, if you want to hear, I'll tell you extreme example.
Okay.
So like, there's this guy I met in Brazil who I'm gonna meet again. YouTuber, makes the best videos on Brazil. Swedish Gringo is his channel name. He had something horrible happen.
Swedish Gringo?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had something terrible happen to him in Brazil. He got scoped, which for those of you who don't know is like a term for he got drugged by scopolamine.
Oh,
if you
what?
know. So scopolamine is a scary thing that there's nicknames like devil's breath or something where you become highly suggestible if you take it. So this is all on his YouTube channel if you want to watch the full video on what happened. But basically he went to this bar and this couple drugged him and then went home with him, and he opened up the doors to his apartment, gave everything to them, and they took everything, including his Apple ID, his iCloud account, like everything, right?
Okay.
And
That's scary.
he woke up, imagine this, you wake up in Brazil.
No.
They even took the keys to his apartment. So like he woke up with nothing, no phone, no computer, no nothing.
Why would they do that?
Luckily he had like somebody to call on, and he borrowed their phone, and he had to like rebuild, but then he was also paranoid about where they're going to come back for him and all this stuff. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because I was thinking like, how would you protect against that?
Right.
And like with your digital accounts. And I was thinking like, if I go to Carnival with a buddy, he could have my 2-factor authentication codes and I could have his. So we would have to call each other to log into our accounts as the second factor of authentication.
Okay.
And therefore, like if I got scoped and they were like trying to log into something, they would have to call him, in which case it'd be like, why are you trying to log into my friend Chris's stuff?
Yeah.
So like this is how I just make that tell you that story just to show you how deep I'm thinking about all the possibilities.
Right.
And like I'm probably not going to do that strategy, but if I did, then I could be like, okay, even if I get scoped, even if the worst thing happens to me, I still have a protection in place. It's kind of like insurance. If you don't have health insurance, you're scared about, oh my God, like what happens if something happens to me? I guess that's more of a financial thing. But like if you have a certain insurance, what you're buying with insurance is peace of mind. So I am able to have more peace of mind when I travel to more dangerous places because of the security plan I put in place. Thinking about these things, you know?
Right. I have gone down both routes. I've gone like, research, do your best before, and then I've gone down like the way that you're doing it, like the proper think about the worst case and make a plan.
Yeah.
And I've done the other route where it's like, what's everything that has possibly could happen, that has happened, and just going down like a rabbit hole of it.
Yeah.
And making a plan and researching can take out so much of the anxiety. And then it's also about learning to let go. So it's like, how do you learn to let go a little bit?
You know, it's funny. I remember watching a video of this guy traveling in South America, and he put his suitcase on a bus, and I thought, oh, that's even scary. Somebody might rob the suitcase on a bus. And then I ended up traveling Brazil, and a lot of it was by bus, and I put the suitcase in, and I guess, I don't know what happened. I just didn't worry too much about it. I guess it's a certain vibe as well. If you like, if the bus driver seemed dodgy, or the people on the bus seemed
The gut
dodgy,
feeling.
then I would start to feel a bit more suspicious. But like, it was a pretty routine. Every bus journey was pretty routine. Everything came back fine. And so like, maybe it's just the vibe that I never really felt unsafe in Brazil, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazilian people are so nice, so welcoming. So in general, I mean, that can be a false sense of security, right?
Right.
But I think most people are nice, and like the culture in Brazil, the way I see it, if they're robbing you, they probably need the money.
Right.
Most of them, I'd say. Like, so it's like, I almost don't like judge them for it, because if you're desperate, like, like if we were starving on an island right now, we would have to like eat things that we wouldn't normally want to eat, or maybe if it got super extreme, we might have to like kill someone to eat, like if you put someone in an extreme situation, they'll do certain things. So I don't ever like judge these people for doing it, but I think as a culture, Brazilian people are just really nice and warm. And so if they're robbing you, it's probably because they need the money. And so you just like, it's not because they're like out to get you. And I don't know if that helps me to feel more safe, because I feel like if they're using a weapon, it's just because they need the thing. I think most of the time, and I might be completely wrong here because I don't necessarily have experience, but I just felt, this is how I sort of feel, is that nobody really wants to hurt you. And I didn't get that vibe. But if you're going to you're going to provide an opportunity to someone to steal something from you, then, it's too tempting for them to just take it.
Right. I think it's, like you're saying, the predictability of aspect of it. Like, you kind of know the worst situation for you, in the sense of like, okay, they could take my iCloud, they could, be after me for this reason. You're kind of like addressing the situation for the person, for the environment, and for everything, and kind of taking that all into consideration. And it can be hard, I think, to let go, because a part of it is control, and a part of it is learning to let go of control. And it's like finding that balance in it, because you can't control everybody around you. And I think that there's like a level of acceptance that you have to be like, okay, well, I am prepared for what I've prepared for.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long you want to talk about safety for, but the most scared I've been has actually been in Turkey, where I was like getting ripped off by a taxi driver. And the reason why I was freaking out is because I wasn't prepared mentally for the situation. Because so what happened in Turkey was the taxi scams are rampant there.
Taxi drivers are just, when they're unregulated, are typically the worst humans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, taxi is the most common scam in the entire world.
Yes.
You can get taxi scammed virtually anywhere.
Never take a taxi that's not through an app. That's like...
Well, so this is the thing. So I was like, I knew about this taxi issue in Turkey. I'm going to get ripped off by a taxi. So I was prepared for the taxi to rip me off. But I booked an Uber. And I was expecting like, oh, because I'm booking through Uber, it's going to be a consistent experience. Oh. But this guy comes up, his license plate didn't match on the app, which was the first red flag. Mm-hmm. And then he yells, Cristiano! And I'm like, my name's not Cristiano, but I think he just assumed it because my name's Chris. And then like he looked like he was clearly there for me. So I was just like, oh, okay. It was like 2 a.m. on the other side of Istanbul. You know how there's like the European side and the Asian side. I was living in the European side, and I was on the Asian side, and I didn't want to be there that late, but I was just, for whatever reason, I was there past midnight. I was like, oh, this is the guy. Get in the car. He drives off super fast, and he's like, where you going, brother? And I'm like, just start the trip and you'll find out. He just left the trip pending. He didn't start it. And so what the issue with that is, like, there's no trip unless he starts the trip.
Oh my God.
So he just started driving. And then this is when it's stupid because I panicked because I wasn't expecting this to happen from an Uber driver. Right. And then like, yeah.
It is the unexpected.
But like if I was so like expecting someone to rob me and then they robbed me the exact same way I expected, I probably wouldn't panic. There has to be a certain level of, I feel like, surprise. So if you can think of the scenario that's likely to happen, then like it takes a lot of the fear and the panic out of the situation. Like the other scams I heard about in Turkey, like somebody tried to pull one scam on me. I'm like, oh, I've heard this scam. oh yeah, I'm not gonna pick up that brush. Okay, yeah. So like that's, I heard about the taxi scams. I did not expect the Uber to, and that's why I freaked out.
Okay, the worst situation that I think ever had was I got robbed.
Oh no.
And I was in Spain, Barcelona.
It's so funny. Every robbery story I hear is from Spain. Like people think Brazil is dangerous and all this stuff, but Spain is just like got a reputation for petty crime.
Spain is unexpected. I swear, because you're traveling throughout Europe and you're like, I just think people maybe don't feel like they need to worry as much.
False sense of security in Spain.
But it was also my first time. So I did something wrong. And I had my bag, and it was an open bag. It wasn't a bag that zips.
Oh.
Okay? So I had my bag right here, and I was walking off the metro. I think it's called the metro there, I think.
Yeah,
but,
probably.
And since I was holding on to it, I felt the bag get lighter. And I was like, no. And I blacked out. I don't remember what happened. I turned around and I punched her. And I had no idea how I knew it was her.
Oh, wow.
I full on went like this and just punched.
Hammer fist.
Yeah, hammer fist, because what she did is she put my phone underneath the jacket. But I don't know how I knew, because I didn't see her.
Was she like sort of a gypsy-looking woman?
No, she was an old lady.
Okay. Because a lot of these like gypsy, I don't actually know what a gypsy is technically, but like a lot of those, it's usually like a gypsy lady that robs you apparently in Spain and Italy.
Oh, I don't know, but no, she didn't grab my phone. She grabbed my whole wallet. So it had it had everything. It had my passport in it. It had like my medication.
That's another tip. Don't carry all your cards at once.
Don't carry your passport out with you. Oh my God. So yeah, I was very newbie. I didn't know what I was doing. And I turned around, and when I hit her, the wallet, and you know how fast the doors open and close there, right? So it's like, this happened really quickly. My wallet flew out, landed on the floor. I grabbed it.
Wow, you were quick thinking, weren't you?
I don't know what came over me. It was like, I literally blacked out because I don't know how I knew it was her. I don't know how, whatever. I pick up the wallet on the floor. This is how I know literally something came over me. I look at her and I scream, "Don't you ever fucking touch my stuff again."
Wow.
And I remember there were 3 guys right there, and they went, "What the hell? This girl is crazy." And then I remember stepping off the match and being like, "What the heck did I just do?" Like walked
Yeah.
off with my friends at the time, and they were like, "Nice."
Good work, sister.
Yeah, they're like, "Good job, babe." And I was like, "Okay, that just happened," and like continued out. But I feel like the majority of stories I hear are people getting like their phone or something stolen.
Well, this is the thing. Like, is it really scary that you might lose your phone, right? Like, people being scared to travel. I mean, the main risk is that you get robbed, which is a huge inconvenience, but it's not scary. I mean,
Right.
actually, the Swedish gringo story is kind of scary because imagine waking up and not even
Yeah,
having a phone to call someone.
that
That's
would
legit
no.
scary. But yeah, so you're not like, you're just aware like, oh, I hope my phone doesn't get stolen. I'm going to hold on to it.
Right.
But it's not like, oh, I'm so scared my phone's going to get stolen. That would be the worst thing in the world. Because like, and then, I mean, if you bring a second phone, if you prepare for it, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And this is why people in Brazil have burner phones. So they're about to get robbed. They switch over to the other phone and like, yeah, have this phone. Like they're
Yeah.
prepared for it, right?
Yeah, that's what I did. I brought like a second phone in case, because I was never sure.
I
But
might even bring a third phone to Brazil this year because like I'm gonna try and film during Carnival, and you know like it's gonna be so many people on the street,
Right.
like so many opportunities to rob people.
yeah, that is like a
It's gonna be mayhem, like
Yeah, a
good
robber's
stuff and
dream.
bad stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But going back to maybe like a little bit of a happier note, what do you think is one of your like happiest memories being a digital nomad?
Happiest memories, honestly, the best travel moments are shared with someone.
I would agree.
So like, yeah, the either with Denise, who was my original partner who I traveled for the first 2.5 years with, or you know, another travel experience that I shared with someone special. You know, it's funny. This wasn't an international travel thing, but like when I was with my ex last year in Melbourne, there was like a long weekend and we took off and we went on this road trip on the Great Ocean Road. And like, you know, Great Ocean Road is beautiful. We had 4 days off, completely in love. Like,
Right.
that was like one of the best 4 days of my life, you know. And she wasn't dramatic during that time either. She just like, for some reason, she was just like lovey, no drama. We just got along, and so it was amazing. So, yeah, I guess the things that make me happy personally are like I like to go to beautiful places and take photos and create content, and obviously the travel aspect of that, seeing someplace new, and then obviously like being someone you're in love with is part of it as well.
Right.
So like and sharing that experience. So like those 3, like, oh my God, this place is so beautiful. We took drone footage of like us driving the car on this
fun.
Great Ocean Road. If nobody's heard it before, look it up. It's probably the most beautiful stretch of road in Australia.
Okay, the Great Ocean? Okay.
Great Ocean Road,
Okay.
yeah. It's like a road right on the ocean front. And yeah, like just all the things that like I like to do to combined, I guess.
Yeah, because I always ask people when I'm traveling, like, what has been one of their favorite memories, because I find it so fascinating. And you'd expect maybe someone to say this extravagant thing, like Niagara Falls or like some major national park or grand moment. But
Yeah.
they always go off of like the little things, like the connection that you can technically, the things that, in my opinion, are like more of an everyday kind of thing that you don't realize and creates like a really special moment. So for me, I always think like some of my favorite things were just walking around by myself and looking at the city. And it's just like all of those little moments while traveling that it doesn't need to be this grand thing. Like it can be kind of all of these collection of small things that you find like along the way. At least that's what it's been for me.
Yeah, for me it's pretty much more about the people you meet than the place. But the thing is, you often need to go to a different place to meet different kinds of people.
That's very true.
So like it's not like you, like I can't experience the culture of Brazil fully without being in Brazil, for example, where even though my city in Australia, so many Brazilians, but they're a different kind of Brazilian just because of how they're in Australia, you know, and being exposed to Western culture and stuff and just assimilating and becoming more like, you know, an Aussie. But like to go to a place, like that's one example. And then also you've got the example in the expat scene, the digital nomad sort of scene, where these are people that are well traveled and that understand your wants and struggles as a digital nomad as well. So yeah, I mean, people is a huge part of the experience for me.
Agreed. I think every single person that when you talk about, is it, you know, the people or the places, they always say it's the people, because a great place alone is not the same kind of memories and shared experiences that you have. Yeah, it's definitely the people that I met, like even on my first trip, that made me be like, wow, this is the best.
Yeah.
Best way to live. And so if someone wanted to do this lifestyle and they wanted to be a web designer, where could they find your course and everything?
Yeah, so I made this, I've been working on this course the idea started like early 2023, and then I've only just finished all the content for it. But essentially it's just like teaching people like web development for Shopify websites, which is essentially what I do. And yeah, I mean, that's an option for people that are interested in the digital nomad lifestyle. They can, I think web development is, well, I'm biased here, but I feel like web development is the best digital nomad career. That's not me saying that I recommend everyone does it, but like it's just so well suited. And then obviously, as I mentioned previous in our conversation, the thing of like, you're going to have to, you can't, well, you can, but it's not ideal to just be a web developer, a jack of all trades.
Right.
So to find what kind of web developer you are, I think Shopify is a great niche. So that's a pathway to becoming a digital nomad that I'm presenting to people. The website for that is shopifythemedeveloper.com if anyone wants to check that out.
Okay.
But I'm looking at, with my channel, like partnering with some other people who have other products or like services that help people become digital nomads. So my friend Joachim runs a school.com community, helping people become digital nomads. Another connection of mine does career coaching for digital nomads. I have another friend who's launching a design course who I may or may not partner with. I'm just in the very beginning stages of figuring out this sort of partnerships as I bring back my YouTube channel. But my idea is to present like actual valuable information to people, like from people that know what they're talking about, rather than sell crap on my channel, you know?
Right.
Or just take sponsors from whoever. I think it's aligns well with my brand and what I promote, and also you know, it's gonna, I mean, if people are inspired to live the digital nomad lifestyle, then like, and they're not yet, then they're gonna need that to get started. But broadly speaking, how do you get started being a digital nomad? There's two parts, obviously, digital and nomad. If you've never traveled out, if you're mainly motivated by the travel lifestyle and you've never traveled before, but you think you might like it, test it out. That would be my advice. I always
say that, yes.
So like, I mean, surely you've got 2 weeks max, a minimum vacation a year.
Right.
Take that vacation, bring your laptop, and then just like work on some stuff. Just work on anything. Go to a co-working
work on some
space.
passion projects.
Yeah, see what it's like to. That's kind of what I did. Like we went on this right after I found out about this digital nomad lifestyle. I had just a holiday, like a trip booked to Southeast Asia, and I was like, oh, let's visit these co-working spaces. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, I was like, could you see yourself working here? You know, and she was like, yeah, I could. And then we came back and like spent 6 months in Chiang Mai, Thailand in 2016.
Oh, I love Chiang Mai.
And so like, so on the travel side of things, test it out.
Yeah.
On the
Definitely
digital like career side of things, obviously you need to find something that's remote, number one,
Right.
obviously. But then all
Flexible.
other things to consider is the other flexible stuff. Like, does it need to be done on a certain time zone?
Yeah.
Is it do you want to freelance? So do you want to make your own hours or scale up and down your work, or do you want to only take time off when you get leave with you know, do you want to have to apply for a day off, or do you just want to tell your clients you're taking a day off? So you got to figure out what level of flexibility you want within that, and then look at a career that that aligns with that. Shameless plug, I got actually, if anyone's watching this and wants to watch it, I'll just give you the link for free. It's a class on skillshare.com, digital nomad career guide.
Okay.
It's only 30 minutes, and I put together like what I would advise anyone to do to start with the digital nomad path. So I've recently produced that, and that's kind of like my 30-minute guide to doing it. So any of your listeners, just reach out, and can send through a free link to that to check out.
Great. And what do you think like the biggest takeaway from those courses are?
It's really hard to, it's really kind of hard to summarize because, I guess it comes down to those two words, digital nomad again. So like, you need to have sort of a digital nomad. You need to be working on something that produces an income that allows you to travel, and then you need to be productive at traveling as well, as we talked about.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, there's two different parts of that, and I've loved our conversation. I think we've touched on so many things and so many important topics, and I'm excited to see more of your course, and I will put links down below so people can check it out.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun.